Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now today I want to explore how automation and artificial intelligence can help the finance industry's burnout problem, which has further been exacerbated by the pandemic and of course the loom of the hybrid workforce. And I also want to explore where technology fits in to revolutionize the very traditional wealth and asset management role and the reception from Wall Street to these broadening tech capabilities. Who am I going to call? If you just said Ghostbusters, you've just dated yourself. But hey, I set them up and you bat them out the park, right? Today's guest is the CTO of one of the world's largest wealth management and investor technology companies, and they're known as SS&C. And SS&C have emerged as the largest hedge fund, private equity and transfer agency in the world, growing to over 25,000 employees, 18,000 clients, and over 200 products and solutions in its portfolio. But as impressive as that is, the company is much more than that, and they're truly rooting themselves as a tech company that's always looking to bring automation, advanced technology, digital transformation, and bringing all that to a traditionally antiquated industry known for being slow adopters amidst especially getting caught up with all those mass regulations, policies, and compliance restrictions. But enough from me. Buckle up and hold on tight as I'm going to beam your ears all the way to New York, where Anthony is waiting to speak with us now about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Anthony Caiafa. I'm the CTO for SS&C Technologies. So we are a global fintech firm serving thousands of customers all over the world. I oversee technology and engineering for the firm. So anything to do within the infrastructure space, application space.
Fantastic. I've got to ask though, where did it all begin? Can you share your origin story, where your passion for tech came from, and what it was that put you on the path you're on today?
So I probably started at a relatively young age, right? I was probably around, fourth or fifth grade. I think that's honestly initially when the movie Hackers came out. And we all thought, me and a core group of friends, we all thought it was just literally the coolest thing, right? And you have these crazy visuals, like you're going in through computers, like everything seemed amazing. Come to find out, it was never as visual as they made it seem, right? So I still remember, and this is crazy, I still remember buying my first copy of Red Hat at a bargain bin at EB Games in the mall, right? Yeah. And then I was just massively disappointed that the screen wasn't flying around at me, right? And from there, there was just always a core group of friends that we're still friends to today. We're all in technology that we just began, writing code and just really building things ever since, right? And I think for me and probably the rest of us, it was just the curiosity that kept me hooked, and the ability to be able to constantly break things and then put them back together differently, and then have them work either the same way or slightly different. I think it just became kind of addicting. And then around, I think it was like ninth grade, 2004, I attended the first Hope, and that was when Kevin Mitnick was speaking there. And then it was relatively eye-opening because I just found that there was thousands of people with similar interests, right? And then after that, it just kind of snowballed into being pretty heavily within the New York City startup scene. And then after doing a bunch of different startups, I kind of made that pivot into financial services with Bloomberg. And then I spent some time there. And then now I'm here at SS&C.
And there will be a lot of people listening, hearing about SS&C for the very first time. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you do and the kind of problems that you solve with your technology?
So SS&C, we solve problems for across all the different verticals of financial services. So the way to think about us is that we are the plumbing for the financial services industry. So everything from private equity, venture capital, asset management, wealth management, middle office, front office, and back office accounting, tax, portfolio analytics. We have automation, workflow automation. We have products that just stretch out across all of those different verticals. And so when a customer comes to us, they're looking at us as the experts to figure out, what's the best way that they could use their data, visualize their data, reconcile their data, and just manage all of their operations within their firm from end to end.
Before you came on the podcast today, I was doing a bit of research on you, and I read that you view the path to innovation in the lens of build or buy. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So, I approach all these situations with a mental model of like a decision tree, right? My background has always been in engineering. So my initial thought process is always, why can't we just build this? Or is there anything open source that we could leverage, contribute back to the community, build on top of it? And but for the most part, and at least my thought is that sometimes enterprise tech takes the fun out of solving the problem on your own, right? Like when things are already done, things are already operationalized, things are, you just kind of sign over a big bag of money, you kind of lose sight of what some of the actual things that are happening under the hood, right? But sitting in this seat, you have to hedge your bet and focus on the business and then how you can quickly deliver and iterate for the business, right? So if I can buy something that'll get me to market 8 months earlier and solve immediate problems for the business units and our customers, that's the path I'm likely going to take, right? Unless that solution that we're trying to build is a part of our core business or core wheelhouse, right? And let me give you an example. So build versus buy. And you could think about a hypervisor, right? Could we build one? Yes. Is it difficult to build? Is it difficult to sort talent? Is it complex? Yes. Right? Is it part of our core business? No. Is it going to take a long time to get off the ground, to get operationalized, et cetera? Yeah. So with using that and kind of, you could look at it and you're going to go out and buy something because you could buy something, get you off the ground in 2 months, and you're going to immediately be able to start moving and just start going ahead and building software.
And I'm curious, how do you think things like automation and artificial intelligence can also help the finance industry's burnout problem at the moment, which, of course, has been further exacerbated by the pandemic and the loom of the hybrid workforce that everyone's talking about?
It's interesting, right? Because burnout isn't something that's only prevalent in finance, right? I think it's way more widespread than that. There's tons of mundane tasks that people do daily, which, truthfully could be AI and automation can help, unblock them from being truly innovative. Meaning, if you sit there and you sit down and you do the same thing over and over and over again, your mind is just going to be almost numb to the point of, oh, hey, I'm just going to continue to do this. And this is it. This is all I ever have to do. You never really step away and kind of try to think outside the box. Right. But yeah. Also, if you look at what's happening in this hybrid workforce, it relieves some of that burnout to a degree, at least in my opinion, right? People are now in the comfort of their own homes. They're not sitting in traffic or on packed trains. They're gaining more time with their family, and they're having a bit more freedom to move throughout life, which I think is really nice and interesting, right? So you have your work schedule is a little bit more flexible than it previously was. I saw this saying years ago that humans were free when phones had cords, right? So it's almost like if you kind of think about it in the context of this hybrid workforce, you're not tied down to an office. You're not tied down to a specific location. So you are a little bit more free now. So now you could think differently, and now you could start kind of evaluating things and putting them into a different light, which I think is really nice. And it's a much different pace than where we've been for the past, 20 something years.
And the finance industry as a rule has been, in some circles, regarded as being cautious, resistant, maybe even slow to change. So where do you think technology fits into revolutionizing the traditional wealth and asset manager role? And also, what kind of reception have you had from Wall Street to these broadening tech capabilities? Is it changing? Is it more open now?
So, I think there's always going to be a place for folks that are traditional wealth managers, traditional asset managers, and traditional investors, right? Technology and data, especially with kind of all the products that we have, what we're doing is just providing them better tools to make better decisions for their customers, right? So we're opening up that data and exposing it in, so many different flexible ways that it just gives them stronger chances of, just stronger ability to execute trades and kind of grow wealth for their customers, right? I don't think we'll ever live in a world where they're kind of non-existent, right? Not everyone in this world is going to get alpha or be able to dump a ton of money into some quant fund, right? Because you think about it, computers use current data and historical data to make decisions, but there's always going to be something that a human could predict, a human could foresee that a computer could not, right? So you're never just going to give, complete trust to a system. Whether it's world events or gut feelings, people are still required, right? There's a pretty good book by Nassim Taleb. He wrote a book called Fooled by Randomness, right? Essentially, when you break it down, a computer can't solve everything for you. Sometimes chance is always going to win, right? So you will always require a human element to be a part of that process.
And as we record today's podcast, a couple of breaking stories. There's one where I think it was a 12-year-old boy here in the UK. He's made $400,000 during the school holiday selling NFTs of a whale, or a series of whales that he's been creating. And Visa, of all companies, have also, I think they spent $150,000 on an NFT too. So I'm curious, how are your thoughts about the new normal or new fads in investing technology? And by that, I mean everything from Bitcoin to Robinhood citizen trading to NFTs, and that list goes on and on. How do you see that landscape?
I grew up in the crypto generation.
Yeah.
Right. I've always been relatively bullish on it because it's just, it's interesting, right? You've took this technical solution and you've applied this monetary value to it, and people go crazy about it, right? I think it is really interesting to see. I like that it's become more mainstream. I like that, I have random people asking me about coins that would have never had these conversations before, right? Yeah. So I think that's interesting to see kind of how it gained. It is kind of upsetting that a lot of people still don't really understand it, but they do see that there's value, and then it can disrupt an industry that they really weren't able to break into. Think about it. 12-year-old, $400,000. That would never happen with traditional equities. It just won't, right? So will these things get a little out of hand? Everything does, right? I've seen some NFTs and purchases that make absolutely no sense to me. But if people find value in it, sure, so be it. Whatever works for you. It is really interesting though, because I've been doing a lot of recent digging with NFTs, and what Nike's done with NFTs and their shoes is a pretty interesting thing that they've recently done. So that's something cool to kind of look up. But this space, there's constant innovation. Things change every day, right? So I think that's pretty interesting. Some of the things that I do worry about, because you'll see there is still that shady side of crypto that I think, as long as we keep on moving forward and trying to really institutionalize it, that will eventually go away, and then it could really become something that's revolutionary for the financial services markets.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I think the fact that everything is moving quickly and changing every day, that's what attracts us to that space as well. We're like moths to flames. But what trends are you seeing in technology and automation in the financial services space? Is there anything else that's caught your attention?
Yeah, so I've been watching DeFi closely,
Yeah.
right? So that's something that really excites me. And I truly want to see that unfold into something of value, right? There's a lot of challenges with it, don't get me wrong, especially when you step into more of the regulatory pieces. But either way, I do think it's a trend that could potentially disrupt CeFi. It's going to take some time. People are going to have to trust it. We're really going to have to think this through. Like, you can't just have 100 million different DeFis popping up all over the place. But I do really want to see that kind of, if not completely revolutionized, but at least rattle the cages a bit to kind of get these big institutions to start thinking differently, right? Because I think you said it before, financial services has traditionally moved slow, and it's not that they're moving slow. It's just that there's a lot at stake. It's different. It's not the same as a lot of these other industries, right? You're talking about trillions of dollars a day, and something that holds up the world's economy. So adoption should be slow, but we should always be keeping a close eye. So I do think that this one is going to be pretty interesting, and I have been watching it really closely.
And I think if you say you're watching it closely there, one of the trends that I'm seeing more and more, especially in tech circles, I don't know what the interest rates are like over there in the US, but here in the UK, an interest rate on a typical savings account is really low at the minute, something like 0.5%. And a lot of people are starting to seek alternative investments, and things like DeFi staking, for example. People can get rewards of anything from 7 to 80%. And I know there's a lot of risk involved in that and a lot of unknowns, but it seems to be an incredibly exciting space. But is there anything else that excites you about the road ahead?
It's hard, right? Because I think what excites me about tech, and has always excited me, is what we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you told me 10 years ago that these random hashes that I was farming with CPUs with a bunch of friends, I could now trade them 10 years later for $50,000 a piece,
yeah.
I would have laughed at you completely. I would have been like, you are completely nuts. My mom and dad are just angry that I'm, sucking up all the power in the house and tying up the phone line, right? But what's nice is that tech is constantly evolving, and having the ability to be inside of an industry where you could learn something new every day, I think is huge, right? So I guess for me, not knowing what is next, but knowing something will come and disrupt, I think that excites me the most, right? Because there's folks out there now, and there's innovators that are aren't mainstream yet, but they're building things that could really change the way that the world operates on a daily basis. And I think that's huge. Like, how many other industries are like that in general, but outside of tech, not many at all. And the fact that tech is creeping into every single vertical now, on every single industry across the board, you're just going to be seeing more and more and more of this disruption. And I think that's really nice, because your traditional ways of business, your traditional ways of operating, your traditional leaders that have always been in place, they're now requiring some form of technical background. So now they're, the kind of my generation, as they come up, they're kind of taking in some of these bigger roles and bigger seats and really driving folks to make a difference. And I think that's what's really nice about this road ahead. Where we're going to be in 10 or 15 years, I have no idea. But that's what's exciting. And that's kind of what keeps me involved.
Love that. And that kind of brings us full circle. We began the conversation talking about your origin story, but I'm now going to ask you, what was the soundtrack to your journey in tech? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has accompanied you in your career, or just helps you get your head in the zone, or inspires you? Is there a song and a story you can share that we can ultimately add to our Spotify playlist?
So this is a tough one, and I'll tell you, this is a real hard question because, I listen to just about everything, right? I try to, and I don't think there's any one particular song that gets me, because a lot of it is just popping on headphones, getting into a zone, and just building something, writing code or something like that, and I guess my biggest genres are just, rap, right? I grew up in New York City. So that's kind of the foundation of music that came out of there. So, things in there, it's a tough question.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. And for anyone listening that would like to find out more information on SS&C, what's the best way of finding you guys online and contacting your team if they want to carry on this conversation we started today? Yeah.
So SSC Tech, you could go to our website. You could take a look there. You could email me if you're more curious about the company, and I can get you to the right people. You could find us on GitHub, on LinkedIn, and just really at this point you can just Google just about anything. So just Google us and we will show up. Trust me.
I love it. I love how we've busted a few myths as well today about, especially around that industry and it's that reputation of being slow adopters amidst mass regulations and compliance restrictions, but how you guys are always looking to bring automation, advanced technology and digital transformation to that industry. It's an incredible story, and thank you for sharing it with me today.
Of course, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Now, as you listen to this, I am a few weeks ahead at the moment. So what that means is we recorded this episode in August when the temperature reached 104 Fahrenheit in New York. So a huge thank you to Anthony for managing to remain cool, calm and collected during this episode and sharing his story, tech trends and what he's seeing and what excites him about the road ahead. But I now want to put the virtual microphone in front of you. What tech trends are you seeing in your industry? What excites you? What concerns you? Do you have a story to share, a question to ask? Whatever it may be, my door is open to each and every one of you. techblogwriter.co.uk is my website. You can email me techblogwriter@outlook.com. And you can also get me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter at Neil C. Hughes. But all I ask is you don't just hit the follow button, and I think I've got a random follower somewhere that's going to give me a sales pitch any minute. Tell me you listen to the podcast. Let's connect one-to-one. We can have a conversation and have a virtual beer. But that's it for today's episode. So a big thank you as always for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.